Chuck Butler writes a newsletter for Aiden Forecast. AidenForecast.com is they're a sponsor of our program, or at least they were. I'm not sure that they still are, but in any case, you know, but I've subscribed to their newsletter for probably close to 20 years now, or at least 15 years, and I get this newsletter every day, and Chuck pointed out a number of things that I just wanted to share with you that I think are worth noting. You know, we're watching the stock market drop, and people are wondering, well, what's going on? You know, is this the sugar high from the tax breaks wearing off, or is this just a normal, cycle in capitalism, or, you know, are there actual structural deficiencies? Now, in my book, The Crash of 2016, which really should have just been titled The Great Crash, because, you know, here it is, I think, or we're on the doorstep of it within the next year. In that book, I laid out how basically in 2008, well, in 2009, after President Obama came to power, was inaugurated, and set about fixing our economy and putting us back on track, that what had precipitated this in 2007 was massive corporate debt that was highly leveraged, and the inability of the Fed to drop interest rates far enough and fast enough to make up for the loss of what's called liquidity, that is available credit in the marketplace. So Chuck starts out talking about how consumer debt now here first of all, that the stock market lost $1 trillion last week. And it looks like it's going to continue that this week, or at least today. Lost $1 trillion in wealth last week, which means that, you know, that small portion of the stock market, you know, the 5 or 10% that is literally working people who are, you know, have their IRAs or their 401ks in there, they are less wealthy than they were. But it also means that a lot of these big corporations that have been financing their debt with stock, their stock is not worth as much, and so the corporations are in trouble. We'll get to that in just a second. Consumer debt in November exploded by $25.4 billion. Consumer debt exploded by $25.4 billion. That was just in November, last month. That's like, you know, basically credit card debt. The annualized consumer debt has now reached $3.9 trillion. That's 7.7% higher than last year. And, you know, we're in the same territory we were in 2007. Meanwhile, the way that the Fed responds to a crash, to a recession, is by dropping what's called the Fed funds rate. In other words, dropping interest rates. So it's cheaper to borrow money, both for businesses and for individuals. So people borrow money and pump that money back into the economy, and that stimulates the economy, right? It's real simple. But in order to do that, the Fed funds rate, that is the interest rate, has to be high enough that the Fed can drop it. On average, before every recession since 1960, or excuse me, since the 1940s, the average has been around 6.5%. So that's a lot of territory that the Fed can drop interest rates to throw money into the economy, right? But right now it's at 2.25%. That means that the Fed has no space to work around this. Meanwhile, billions of dollars are flowing out of these these ETFs, these exchange traded funds. Billions of dollars are flowing out of the ETFs that have to do with corporate debt. In other words, the market is starting to freak out. We're seeing the same stuff we saw in late 2007, in my opinion.